So I have a guitar in with an interesting problem that I thought I would show to you guys, so that you could see how I determined that this was a problem and also kind of hear my 2 cents on, what to do about it. This guitar has a twisted neck. Now, I get people calling me a lot, claiming to have twisted necks. And most of the time when I get those calls, that's not actually what's going on. Usually it's some other setup-related issue that's going on that's causing the buzz. And even if a neck is a little twisted, most of the time you can find some kind of happy medium with it that will work. And you just have to kind of play with the neck relief adjustment until you find out what that is. This case is pretty severe, and so I wasn't able to actually find any sort of happy medium, and this neck is definitely going to be a problem that prevents this guitar from taking a decent setup. Now, how to detect a twisted neck? Now, you could sight down the neck, as in, lift the guitar up, you're holding the body down here and the nut end up here, and you're sighting down the tops of the frets in good lighting. And if you have skilled eyes and you have good lighting, you can a lot of times kind of detect a twisted neck. But my preferred method is a little bit more concrete than just kind of seeing it. And that more concrete method is what I used here. So for doing electric setups with the gauge of string that I have here and with the action that was being talked about, I usually like to set about 10 thousandths of neck relief. And the way that I measure neck relief is that I'll put a straight edge down the tops of the frets, make sure that it's not hanging up on the nut or the pickups or anything else, so that we've got firm contact just on the frets, and then take a feeler gauge and slide it under that 7th fret and basically do a neck adjustment until I'm getting kind of a nice tight fit between the straight edge and the top of that 7th fret with a feeler gauge at 0.010. I don't take this measurement usually with the guitar lying down. I want to preface that all setup adjustments should generally be made in playing position, and so what I'm going to show you here is more of a how to detect a twisted neck technique and not how to set a neck relief, which I might do in another video at some point. But bear with me here, because I'm going to need to actually use this feeler gauge and the straight edge to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So at the center of the board, I've got a pretty good fit for that 10K right down the middle of the board between the D and the D and the G string. Now, in order to detect a twist, though, if the neck is twisted, there should be a different reading out to the extreme edges of the board. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop the straight edge between the B and the high E string, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to take that same measurement. And it's a little hard for me to see over on the opposite side of the straight edge. But what I'm feeling over here basically is that this number 10 all of a sudden is pretty loose. And it's really loose. And spoilers, I have already tested this through, and what I'm reading on this side of the straight edge is somewhere close to about 13K of neck relief, which is kind of a lot. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this and we're going to drop it between the A and the low E, and we're going to try taking the same measurement. Now on this side, I'm not able to get any of this feeler gauge in there, and again, spoilers, I've measured this, and basically what we're looking at on this side is something like 1 or 2 thousandths, like a sheet of paper. And unfortunately, if this twist were running in the other direction, this neck would probably work just fine. It's just that the side with not enough neck relief is unfortunately the side with the low E, and that's the side that we'd actually want more of. So it's just kind of an unfortunate luck that this guitar ended up kind of twisted in the way that it is, because I think that we could probably work with it otherwise. But as it stands, the issue that this guitar is having is that the low E is getting a really nasty buzz, and the buzz is coming from, some point here in the middle of the fretboard, which means that there's no neck relief, which means that the bottom arc of that string rotation is actually beating on the top of some frets, and so that's what's actually creating the problem. So things to do about a twisted neck, like I said, if it's not too twisted, or if it's twisted in kind of a fortuitous way where you have a little bit more relief on the bass side than on the treble side, you can oftentimes work with it. It's not going to be a normal setup, and so whatever numbers you have in your head for setting neck relief, just go ahead and toss those out. You maybe use it as a guideline for your starting point, but you're going to have to drift one way or the other beyond those numbers a little bit, and then kind of work with the string height, the nut, and everything else to kind of get the setup done. In cases where you aren't able to work with the twist, and maybe it's twisted in such a way that it could be corrected, there are some neck clamping jigs that I've tried that in some cases help. I don't think that they'd help in this case, unfortunately, just with how severe this is and kind of where it's at. So those are the two solutions that would involve keeping the original neck. And then, of course, the next solution on a bolt-on guitar, which this is, would be to call the factory that produced the guitar, especially if it's brand new, or call the store that it came from and see if you can make a return on it, or if the company will send you a replacement neck. And unfortunately, when stuff is really out of the ball, really just way out of whack like this, that's kind of where you're at with things, unless you're willing to explore some other solutions that are much more expensive, like a full Reef Ret, in which case the entire board would have to be, re-leveled and everything. And the thing is with the Reef Ret, with the Reef Ret solution too, and I'd really caution people on going that route unless it's for one thing, a neck that's worth saving. So it's an expensive neck on a very expensive guitar. It's a guitar that you can't easily pull the neck off of, like it's a set neck guitar or a neck through guitar. But the issue that you can run into when going that route is that in some cases there's a reason that the neck twisted. Maybe they were using green wood. Maybe there's a knot somewhere adjacent to where the neck was pulled out of the lumber. Who knows? But what I'm basically getting at is that you could get through with that whole fret job, and everything measures out just fine, immediately after it's done, and you get the frets leveled and crowned and polished, and everything is looking good, and then you go to set it up, and it may even set up well. But, then give it, a few weeks or months to kind of sit and do what it's going to do. That neck may decide to kind of redevelop that same twist. And so doing the Reef Ret is kind of a more risky of the options that's available to you. So in this case, I ended up calling the customer about this guitar. They're going to contact the company because this is basically the company's problem, and they're either going to send them out a new guitar or a new neck. And at that point, we may be moving forward with, doing some setup work and, bone nut and installation and everything. But as it stands with this guitar here, unfortunately, we're kind of at an impasse with this guy because this is just not going to get along. And unfortunately, these twisted necks are kind of an unusual problem, and so this isn't usually the first thing that I'll check for. Out of all my years of doing this, I've only seen kind of a handful of necks that were so bad that they were just not going to take a setup. This being one of those, and so. Unfortunately, this is the kind of thing that sometimes doesn't get caught until work is already underway, which is kind of what ended up happening here. So, in any case, I wouldn't necessarily say that you should watch out for this a whole bunch, but if you do pick up a guitar and you're kind of futzing with it and trying to get the setup dialed in, and it just won't. This may be a thing that you want to look for. And man, if you're not looking for a twisted neck, it can be a hair-pulling experience trying to get a setup done on a guitar that's got a twisted neck, because you'll have everything right, nut will be perfect, the neck relief will be perfect, everything will be dialed in just exactly right, and you'll still end up with this horrible buzz and just be unable to really put your finger on it until you look for that twist. But that's another source of kind of mysterious buzzing problems that I've run into a number of times on guitars. So for those of you that now know that your neck is twisted, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I'm sorry, but at least you might be able to figure out a workable solution, either with your dealer or the manufacturer, and I wish you luck with that. This has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. I have many more vids on my channel, and I have a website with prices and some helpful tips for guitar owners. So visit that if you feel like it. Thank you for watching.